Appreciate you being here with us today. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us first. Ryan Kelley, live on the line as you are out campaigning. I think it's important to note, as soon as you got released yesterday, that federal courthouse in Grand Rapids, you hit the ground running and right back onto the campaign trail.
We did, Justin. The support that was there yesterday was amazing to see as I walked out. You know, the timing of this it's no coincidence, right? This is all theater. As we see the January 6th hearings yesterday, really they weaponized the FBI against me on this wild goose chase here. And, you know, just like I do, Justin, they're not after me. They're after all of us. And this is just another example of that right now.
So let's break some of this down. I mean, it was unprecedented. That's what attorneys are calling it. In fact, Michigan Attorney General GOP candidate Matt DePerno was there yesterday at the courthouse. I had conversations with him as we listened into your arraignment, and one of the things that he noted, and I, you know, I sort of thought very curiously about this too, is why the FBI would do a raid on your home with your family, your children present there, and your wife, for misdemeanor charges. This essentially is almost like a traffic ticket, a misdemeanor. Now, I know these charges might be a little more serious. In that case, they do carry up to a year. We're being told, and hefty fines. But what are you hearing about that from your attorney, and the unusual circumstances of all of this?
Yeah, we'll be talking about this in court, so the whole story will come out as time goes on. So I encourage everybody to stay tuned. You know, my attorneys, we've spoke, and you know, we're not going to be talking about any of the components here in regard to the case. But you mentioned them coming to my house, and you're right, Justin. I mean, this was an intimidation tactic for my family, for myself, and for our supporters, right? And we're not going to be intimidated by this. We know that, there's these baseless claims that they have of what happened that day. And honestly, Justin, I think at this point, when we see what's going on in our country, right, the political witch hunt over the matters that are truly mattering to the American people right now, right? Inflation, record high gas prices, record high food prices, baby formula shortages, rising violent crime across the country, the border crisis, right? People see right through all of this nonsense and see what's going on with this. And they want a Congress, they want a governor that's actually going to represent the people and address the issues of the day, and not just continue going off on these wild goose chases like we see here with this now.
Ryan, we've seen connections with investigations, obviously here now into January 6th, but also the alleged Whitmer kidnapping plot and what took place here in Michigan. The man in charge of the FBI here in Detroit and Michigan during that kidnapping plot was eventually, and Julie Kelley will be on, talk a little bit more about this later on in the program, but he was eventually promoted into Washington, D.C., into that office. And folks have asked that question before. Do you feel like you were targeted specifically for your political beliefs and because you're a candidate? And do you have any thoughts on maybe the prior experience? I know you did have some communication with the FBI previously.
Yeah, there was communication there back in July of 2020 in regard to other issues related to nursing home deaths in the state of Michigan and our current governor. And, right now I'm the front runner in the gubernatorial race. And my political opponents, they don't like that. So, what the true motive is, I don't know. I'm not going to speculate on those things here. But, there's a lot of us that we're still wondering why the questions about the 2020 election haven't been answered. And, the people asking the questions on, hey, why is 2,000 mules not being looked at closer? Why do we have all this evidence piling up and no one's looking at it, but we're continuing to go off on these political wish hunts against the front runner of the Michigan gubernatorial race on the Republican side? And they're going after the people asking the questions that truly want to protect our republic, uphold election integrity, and want the issues of the day facing the American people to be addressed. And that's a sad day in America. And you know what? We're going to keep fighting. We're not slowing down. The support coming in is incredible. And I'm asking every single person across this state and across our country to stand with me against this oppression, against all of this tyranny that we see. Let's rise up, become better, become stronger Americans, and let's take our state and our country back.
Ryan, what are you hearing from people? Speaking of which, I know there was a group of supporters that gathered there at the courthouse yesterday. They prayed before your arraignment. You were greeted with them as you walked out of the courthouse yesterday. What are you hearing from those supporters today? Has this shaken their resolve at all, or has it hardened it, strengthened it?
It's strengthened the resolve, Justin. It really has. It's brought new people into our circle, into our fold. The overflow of support has been incredible. I'm humbled by that. I pray that, God continues to give me the strength, the wisdom, and the courage to understand his path to follow. And I just continue following down that path there. So I am so appreciative of every single supporter that has reached out, that was there yesterday, traveled from all over the state. It was incredible. And people drove hours to come out there and support because we see through what's happening here. We see the disregard of the things that matter to Americans and continue to try to weaponize the Biden administration, FBI, and DOJ to come after, situations like this that, there's faceless claims here is what it is, right? And the dishonest media is going to continue to try to paint and portray things in a way that's just not accurate. But we've seen that with President Trump and many others over the last several years. We know that it's all painted in a way to try to discredit conservative, apologetically American. And Justin, I'm unapologetically American, and we are going to continue right into the primary, win this, and then win the general election. Governor Kelley coming up January 2020,
Right.
January 2023.
I got to ask you, just like on a personal level here, man to man, did you ever expect? I mean, I know throughout 2020 and since you've been stepping up in roles and to speak out and speak up in politically like things that you see that are wrong. But did you ever expect that this type of thing would happen to you? That this type of consequence might happen?
How do you mean? I guess
That you would be targeted, that the FBI would be showing up at your home, that you would be finding yourself in handcuffs, a target of a political prisoner?
I think all of us that have stood up in some capacity, it's crossed our mind because we know that the agenda is not to pursue American excellence from the left. It's to pursue, the destruction of American values. We know that the left is aiming to destroy our schools and our children with this transgender theory and these hormone blocking medications, and conservatives that stand up to that and say, no, we need to bring God back into the picture. No, we're going to stand strong for our Constitution, for American values, for family values, for the nuclear family. Yeah, we know that there's a certain target that's going to be on our back. And you know what? We're on God's side. We're on the side to keep the American Republic strong and intact for the next generation. And it's a risk that all of us are willing to take to stand up and do the right thing.
Ryan, I know you can't talk about maybe the specifics of this case entirely, but can you clarify? There's some confusion. I haven't seen any evidence. And the way the charges are written, it talks about in a building or on the grounds. Can you clarify, did you ever enter the Capitol? I think you've been clear about that before in speeches. So maybe you could mention that
I have, yes. Yeah, I'll clarify that. I did not go inside the Capitol or any buildings. And then the rest of the story will, as the court case plays out, we'll be sharing more on that at some point in the near future.
We can understand that. Let me ask you last and not least here. Do you regret any of that? Anything that happened that day? I mean, do you regret being there? Any of these things?
President Trump had a rally that day, and he called for Americans to come there and, support him, to shine a light on fraud that happened in our election. And there was a lot of American flags there that day. There was a lot of people singing the national anthem. And so I think that day, that we were there celebrating America, it's going to be remembered for a very long time. We'll say that much.
All right. I want to ask this before we let you go. Your family, obviously, this happened in front of your kids. You have a one very young infant. How old is that child, by the way?
He is almost 9 weeks old, so
And,
very young.
and you've got is it 4 other kids too?
We have 5 other kids.
5
actually.
other kids.
We have six
cow.
kids total. Yeah, I'm surpassing your previous count.
That's awesome. As a dad, what was that like? How did the kids handle it? What were the questions like afterwards to see these type of things happen?
Yeah, there was conversation that happened there with my kids, and we talked about everything that happened there. That's another one, too, that I think will be brought up later. So I'm going to have to save those specifics for another time.
Okay. What about folks? We've seen some messages in support from your opponents in some ways. It seems like this is a time that folks on the right, conservatives at least, should be uniting. What's your call to them and to the rest of the folks that may even support those people?
For the other gubernatorial candidates that put out a statement in support, thank you all very much. I have tremendous respect for them for doing that. And this truly is a time, Justin, where the conservatives, the Republicans, us freedom-loving Americans, we really need to find ways to band together to make sure Gretchen Whitmer is a one-term governor, get Dana Nessel out of office, get Jocelyn Benson out of office. We get Matt DePerno in there. We get Christina Caramo in there. We get Ryan Kelley in there. We really need to understand the bigger picture of what's going on in our country right now and in our state. We have to stop the bickering. We have to stop the back and forth, and we have to find ways that we can all come together, get behind each other, and make sure that moving forward into this general election, that all of those seats turn red with strong America First candidates ready to make some big changes in our state. And again, I thank the other candidates that have made statements on this. I appreciate it, gentlemen, and know that we're in this together to make sure that seat goes red this November.
Ryan Kelley, of course, he was arrested yesterday. The home raided by the FBI over misdemeanor charges. The story continues to develop here. Ryan, you have a court date on the 16th. We'll continue to stay updated with you and, of course, let folks know what's going there. Ryan Kelley, Kelley, RyanDKelley.com is the website. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Appreciate it, Ryan.
Thanks, Justin. God bless.